These are 5 options for a watch collection under $10,000. So let's get right into it. The first collection lends itself for maximum versatility, and so really I want this to be a collection that is able to be used in any situation at any time. So the first watch in this collection is the Grand Seiko SBGM 221. It's a watch that is about $3,700 on the secondary market, and I feel you get a tremendous amount of value considering the finishing of the dial and indices and the hands, and of course that amazing movement from Grand Seiko. It's a watch that has a GMT complication that functions a lot like the Rolex GMT with a jumping hour hand, and I love that ivory cream dial. It's a watch that can be dressed up, dressed down, and for $3,700 it's a no-brainer. The second watch in this collection is the Omega Constellation Globemaster. It's a watch that you can get pre-owned for under $5,000, and I think it's absolutely phenomenal considering it's a Genta design watch in a 39mm stainless steel case, which is really just a perfect size, that comes with a phenomenal display case back for the movement and a great pie pan dial. It's a watch that you can wear every day to frankly any situation and it wouldn't be out of place. An important note on this watch is it actually has a tungsten bezel, and so that means it's going to be super scratch resistant, unlike for example the Rolex Datejust, which uses a white gold bezel and the fluted bezel, which is super scratch prone. And so you get a lot of value for money overall in this piece. The last watch for this collection that's focused on maximum versatility is the Longines Legend Diver. It's a watch that can be had pre-owned for about $1,600, and I think you get a lot of value. It's a dive watch that's based on a vintage watch from Longines that I think is really well done, but again, that's super versatile in that it can be dressed up, dressed down, and you ultimately get all the style and history and heritage of the Longines brand. So this next collection is for the type of collector who really appreciates vintage designs, and so all of these really lean themselves to historical inspiration from vintage watches of these brands. The first watch is the Omega Seamaster 1948, again based on a vintage watch from Omega, and it's a very clean and timeless design in that it's kind of just 3 hands with the opaline dial that is time only and classic and timeless. At 38mm in a stainless steel case, I think this is a really timeless design that makes for a great everyday wear watch, and at that price point of under $5,500 on the secondary market, I think this is a real bargain from Omega. The next watch is the Tissot Heritage 1948. This is a watch that's super interesting in its case because it has these wonderful twisted lugs that I absolutely love. It's a watch that definitely evokes a bygone era in terms of watchmaking and in terms of design, and at that price point of under $2,000, I think it makes actually for a watch that is supremely well priced and you get a lot of value for. This last watch is one that can really be worn in any situation and certainly evokes that vintage design, and that is the Tudor Black Bay 58 that was based on the reference 7924 from Tudor, a Tudor Submariner that was originally made in 1958. I really like the gilt accents, the rose gold hands, and that red triangle at 12 o'clock. I think overall this is a supreme design that really can be worn in any situation and caps off this collection really nicely. The next collection is for someone like me who actually has quite a small wrist. At 6¼ inches, it's hard to find watches that fit my wrist properly, and so this is for that collector that has that smaller wrist and that is looking for great options. This first watch is a super unique watch in its K-shape, and it is the Zenith El Primero A384. It's a watch that can be had for under $6,000 that I think is really great in that it has a really nice panda style dial in a super unique case format in 37mm that really can be worn dressed up, dressed down, and is great for somebody with a smaller wrist. Now you can get this watch on the bracelet, but the bracelet is super flimsy, so I definitely recommend getting on a leather strap. And again, I think it's a much more versatile piece on that leather strap, or you can even throw it on rubber to make it quite sporty. The next watch is one that I just mentioned earlier, and that is the Tudor Black Bay 58. But for this collection, I wanted to add a little bit of a pop of color, and so I'm picking the blue version. Again, as I mentioned, it's a watch that really can do anything, and it's that classic dive watch that is a staple in any collection. Last but not least is one from Longines. Longines has really been producing a lot of bangers from their heritage collection or their heritage inspired watches, and one that I really personally like is the Sector Dial Longines. I especially like for this collection in the black dial. It's a watch that's time only, super simple, super elegant, can be dressed up or down, and really caps off this collection nicely because it's that time only, wine set and wear kind of watch that every collection needs. So since I just did a collection for the small wristed collectors, I think it's only fair that I do one for those with a larger wrist, namely ones with a bigger than 7-inch wrist. The first watch in this collection is from Tudor. It's a Tudor Black Bay GMT that I think is one of the very best alternatives to a Rolex GMT. It's super functional, definitely wears a lot bigger with its 42mm case size, and I love that kind of Pepsi style bezel that I feel is very retro inspired, yet you get the modern build quality of a modern watch. The next watch is the Omega Seamaster 300M with the wave dial. I especially like the white one with the black bezel, what I call the Great White or the Polar Seamaster. I think it's a great watch under that $4,500 price point that can be dressed up or down. Again, it's that dive watch that can do anything and be in any situation, and it's a timeless and enduring classic. So we have a diver, we have a GMT, and so to cap off this collection, you have to have a chronograph. And the one that I would choose is the Hamilton Intramatic chronograph. It's a 2-register chronograph with a date at 6 o'clock that I feel is really well done by Hamilton, and I think is a great bargain at that under $2,000 price point. Now, they made both a panda style version as well as that blue version, which I would pick for this collection just as an added pop of color and to give that versatility that this collection needs. Last but not least are my personal picks. If I had to choose a watch collection under $10,000, what would it look like? Well, the first watch is the Grand Seiko SBGM 221. This is a watch that I mentioned in the first collection, and I feel you get a lot of value for money from it. From that ivory dial to that amazing finishing, I think it's really a watch that is stunning and that represents a lot of value, especially because it's from Grand Seiko, which isn't a brand that is necessarily super popular or collectible among watch collectors. Next is the Tudor Black Bay 58. I would choose the black version because it would make for a good contrast with the Grand Seiko, and at the end of the day, I really appreciate the kind of vintage style and theme of that watch, much more than, for example, the blue version. And again, the Tudor Black Bay 58 is that do-anything dive watch that I feel every collection needs because it is very robust and really can be worn in any situation. And lastly is one of those bangers that I mentioned earlier from Longines, those retro-inspired watches. And this is a supremely well-made watch that I think is such a great design and so overlooked by collectors. The watch is the Longines Heritage Chronograph. It has a wonderful design with that tuxedo style dial and a 2-register chronograph format, which are my personal favorite. It's a watch that's inspired by a vintage reference from Longines, and again, you get the modern case and movement sensibility of a modern watch. And so you get really the best of both worlds in this watch, not only from a design perspective, but also I feel from a functionality perspective as it adds that chronograph to this collection. I think this Longines caps off the collection really nicely in that you get a GMT, you get a dive watch, and you also get a chronograph. So you really cover all 3 major functions, all for under $10,000, and all for watches that are supremely versatile, can be worn every day, and frankly are good in any situation. So guys, these are my suggestions for 5 watch collections under $10,000. I'd love to hear down in the comments below if you agree or disagree, or shoot me some suggestions of collections under $10,000 that you would purchase for yourself. I would love to hear your feedback, and of course guys, I would really appreciate it if you hit the like button, subscribe for more in the future, and of course, I'll see you in the next one.